Hi guys, I'm David with Media Unlocked, and today we're going to be doing the overview of the Canon 6D Mark II. Now, this is going to be a walkthrough. The idea is that you can throw your manual out, and we're going to try to explain every function and button on this camera to the best of our knowledge. Now, this is going to be a 3 to 4 part video, so let's get started. So we're going to start with the very front of the camera. Part 1 is going to be the whole outside of the camera and kind of explaining what all the buttons and functions do. So starting off, we have our shutter release right here. So this is what you're going to push when you actually take a picture. Now you have the infrared sensor, which is going to be right here. So this is when you're going to be using a remote, as well as you have a remote sensor right here. Now over here to the right here, this is where your mic is going to be when you're capturing audio. Of course, in my opinion, if you're shooting video and you're capturing audio through your Canon camera, that is not the best idea. I would be using an external mic or an external recorder for that. Now we have our depth of field preview button, which you guys probably can't see very well, but it's going to be right here on the right side of the camera. And as you guys can see, it's going to be right here, and you'll just push that when you want to do a depth of field preview. Now, if we want to change out our lenses, we have a button right here. So the idea is that you're going to hit this button and you're going to be able to take your lens off. Now, as you notice, this is a red dot right here. What that red dot means is that it's going to take full frame lenses. It will not take APS-C lenses, which is a crop censored lens. The problem is if you put an APS-C, and always check this out before you ever put an APS-C or any lens that you're unsure of if it's actually made for a full frame camera, is that the mirror will actually, the APS-C lenses tend to go further back and the mirror will come up, and you can actually break your mirror while trying to actually take a picture because the APS-C lens is not made for a full frame camera. So just keep that in mind. So let's put this back on. Moving on, down here in the corner, this is where you would connect your intervalometer or your wired remote. So this is going to be great for setting up time lapses or a plethora of other functions that your intervalometer might do. Moving on to the right side of the Canon 6D Mark II, if you're looking from behind the camera, is our SD card slot. Now, one thing that I was a little disappointed in the 6D Mark II was that they only gave us one SD card slot, not two, or not a CF and an SD card slot. But it's very simplistic. You just pop your SD card out and you can pop it right back in. Now, let's move on to the opposite side, the left side if you're looking from behind the camera, and let's go over the inputs that we have over there. Now, moving on, we have again, we're looking at the left side of the camera if you're looking from behind the camera. And we have the mic import here. And we have the USB input here and the HDMI input here. So if you wanted to hook in a mic, this is where you would hook in an external mic. As I said earlier, you don't want to use the onboard mic on the Canon 6D Mark II because, well, it's just crap. So being able to hook in a mic here, and then you can probably set it up on your hot shoe on the top, is the ideal way to set up. Or as we're doing right now, we're using an external recorder, and then we're going to sync the audio to this video afterwards. So we'll do here. You also have one of your speakers right here for listening for playback. And then, of course, we have the USB hookup, which you would use if you were going to download the photos directly from the camera onto the computer. Now, I am a big fan of doing the SD card into an SD card reader, but you do have that option. As well, HDMI, so we have HDMI out, so you are able to connect, if you have friends or family, you guys want to rewatch some pictures or videos that you recently took, you can hook that into your TV, or an external monitor if you're doing video, and you want to be able to, you want a larger screen. So now let's move to the back of the 6D Mark II. Starting on the back of the 6D Mark II, we're going to go on and flip our on button here. And it's letting me know that the card is full, as I actually have filled that card that's sitting in the camera. But we are going to start with here. So if you wanted to hit menu, you could hit menu right here, and we could start going through the menu settings, which we will do in part 2. We will actually start walking through the menu settings. But we'll go up here and hit our shutter release button up here at the top, which we went over in the very first part of this video. And we'll go back to here, where it's giving us all of our information. Now, this is a touch screen camera, but we can actually hit our info button and we can hit, and this will give us a blank screen right here if we don't want any kind of screen at all. We can hit this, and this will give us a level. Now the level is fantastic, especially when you're using a tripod or anytime that you're trying to shoot something, you want to make sure your horizon line is correct. This is going to let us know actually that this is perfectly even at the moment. It's very level. But if I moved it, and as you can see, if I move it a little bit, it's going to go off level, and I'll let go, and it's going to go back to being level, hopefully, as it is. And then we can hit info again, and it goes back to all the information in the screen, which we're going to come back to. Moving on to the screen itself, again, we're going to come back to the actual functions of the screen right here. But let's talk about the articulating screen, which the original 60 did not have, where the 60 Mark II does, and I just love it. Again, we can always hit the shutter to bring it back to life if it goes dead on us there and it falls asleep. So the really cool thing is this articulating screen. Again, I can set this up. So if I actually wanted to be doing a vlog style shoot and I wanted to see the actual video that's coming from the camera, I can look right into this screen and see that. Now, if I am shooting at a lower level, I can actually look down onto the screen this way, which is really nice. Now, if I'm trying to be Mr. Paparazzi, I can actually flip it down here, be holding the screen up in the air, and be able to actually look up at the screen while I'm holding the camera up in the air, look at the screen, and get those shots. So I'm hopefully doing a better job than the other paparazzi people because I have an advantage. Hopefully they don't have the same camera as me. Now let's put the screen back in. Up here is our hot shoe attachment. This is where we can attach a plethora of different stuff, from a speed light, flash, to any type of mic that has again, a hot shoe. There's all kinds of accessories. That's where those will go right there. We have our optical eyepiece here, and this actually pops off. I don't have this piece on mine. I find it easier to look through this without this piece right here. Leave that off for 1 second because I want to talk about our diopter right here. Now this is a really cool thing. And if you're ever looking through your camera screen and you're like, man, nothing is ever in focus and I can't figure out why. Well, that's because your diopter might be off. The cool thing about the diopter is it's supposed to match your eyes. Mainly the idea is that you don't have to wear your glasses or your contacts when you're looking through this viewfinder here, and you can adjust your diopter to pretty much the prescription that your eyes, whatever your eyes need, if you're farsighted or nearsighted, which I think is really, really cool. So I remember one time I was shooting with Joel Grimes, and I kept asking him, I couldn't figure out why my screen wasn't, my pictures were coming out. They looked fine and in focus when they popped up on the screen, but they looked out of focus when I was looking through the viewfinder, and we couldn't figure it out. And finally, Joel mentioned, have you checked your diopter? And somehow my diopter had actually been moved from where it was previously set. So I readjusted my diopter and I was good to go. So we can slide this right back in. We have the option to go from video mode to photo mode. If we flip down right here, we are in video mode and we could start recording, and we would just hit this button. As you can see, the red light comes on and now we're recording. But we're going to come back to that probably in part 3, 4, or 5 whenever we get to the actual video functions. So we will stop recording, we will flip back into photography mode, and then we will hit the start stop button here. And now we're in what's called live view mode. So the really cool thing about live view mode, and this is what I've used it a lot for in the past, is when I first started out and I'm shooting in manual and I didn't know how to properly expose things, I would actually use live view mode to make changes right in the live view mode for my camera, and then I would actually go back out of the live view mode and I would actually start taking the pictures. I personally am not a fan of taking pictures while in live view mode, but it is a great way to get an idea of where your exposure needs to be. Another great reason for live view mode, and my actual lens is in manual focus, so we can flip to autofocus here, is that it allows you to get sharper focus if you're having issues with getting focus with your focus points. So we can actually go here and it will focus for me right there. So that's really nice, is I can pick places to specifically focus, or say we decide to do focus stacking. Well, we can take a picture, focus, take a picture, focus, and keep refocusing and get that focus stack. So which is really nice. So live view mode has a lot of different options that you can use it for. I don't personally use live view mode that much. Moving on, we're going to talk about the AF on button right here, which is actually back button focus. Now, if you guys don't know what back button focus is, I absolutely love it, because what it does is it allows me to hit this back button focus, lock on focus point, and then it's going to hold that focus point. Now, if I personally move, this is not like servo where it will constantly refocus on a subject that I picked. Say like if we got a moving bird and we want to capture it as it moves, it will try to keep refocusing to keep up with the bird. This will just lock the focus in. And again, a lot of people have it set to their shutter button up here in the front, the button that you push when you actually want to take a picture. And what that will do is you'll hit that button up here in the front, it will focus, and then you'll take the picture. I've turned that off so this front button, shutter release, will only take the picture, and this back button focus will actually do the focusing for me. Next is our AE lock. There's a little star at the top. That is your AE lock button until you program it for something else. Next is our autofocus point button here, and this was going to allow us, there's 45 cross focus points here on the 6D Mark II, and the nice thing is I can use this to change, or I can use the touchscreen and figure out exactly where I want to focus. So if I know I've got something in this block right here, and this is what I want to focus on, I can hit that, then go here, and now it's going to refocus when I hit my back button focus, and then snap the picture, and there we go. Moving down here, this button right here is if you want to actually go into the last picture that you took, and then you want to zoom in and take a look at it, you are able to do that. I'm going to hit the shutter button, hit the play button, and now I can also, again, take a look at the last picture I've shot, and I can go through and look at all the pictures that I've taken, or videos. I can also hit the info button. Again, the info button, anytime you're in something new, a lot of times you can hit the info button to get more info on whatever you're working on. In this case, we're looking at pictures, and now I can look at my histogram. I can look at what I shot as far as my exposure was, my ISO, my shutter, my f-stop or aperture. I shot it in manual, and it gives you that information. Or I can just look at the picture again with no information on it, or I could just go limited information. So we can hit that. You can also, while we're in here, if I want to delete this picture, there's a little delete button down here. I hit that, I scroll over, I click set. Now it has been deleted. Next is the wheel right here. This wheel right here will actually change your f-stop. And if you want to lock it in, you can hit this lock button, and now your f-stop is actually locked in. Hit that again, unlock it, and your aperture or f-stop, we can go in and change that. Moving on to our last button is the quick button or Q button. If you hit it, it allows you to go into your menu systems and change stuff within here, or we can go back out. But because we have touchscreen now, we are able to, and if you don't hit exactly the item that you're looking for, if you hit off to the side, it's going to pop up telling you to hit the Q button. And we can go in and change stuff right here. So I could change my shutter, I could change my aperture, I could change my ISO, and I can go through and change all these different options. This is your Wi-Fi option, which you got to configure in settings, as it just went in there to let me configure it. We can hit shutter to go back out. We could change our white balance right here. And we're just going to white balance. We can change our picture profile. And pretty much we can go through and make a lot of different changes as far as if we want to shoot RAW. Again, all these changes can be made in the menu system for people like myself who have been shooting Canon for a very long time. I always end up going to the menu system to change them, but this is a little bit faster, especially if you're newer to the Canon family. This is a quicker way to go in and make changes. But most of those changes we're going to be able to make from up here when we talk about this, and the menu system, which is kind of second nature to me, and I find that to be faster for myself. So let's move over to the dial system.
Hi, this is Bill, and I'm stepping in for David because David doesn't understand dials. He only does buttons. So he left me with the dial here. I want to talk a little bit about the dial functions on the 6D Mark II and give you an idea of what each one does. So if you'll notice, I've got it set up here on the bulb function. Bulb function is, of course, for long-term exposure. You can use it with a remote. You can use it just holding it down. Anything over 30 seconds is where you want to use the bulb. We can shift over to the manual function. Now you'll notice the screen will tell you exactly which function you're shifting to. You can turn that off on your menu function if you choose to, but when you first get it, it's kind of helpful to know. Manual function is where you will set everything. Your camera makes absolutely no decisions. Something I tell my students in class when I'm teaching them is that the manual function is eventually where you want to wind up at, because believe it or not, you are smarter than your camera. Your camera thinks it's smarter, but it hasn't been told the whole story. Shifting around a little bit more, AV is Canon's name for aperture priority. What that means is that you set the aperture for your camera, the f-stop, and it selects the shutter speed based upon the available light conditions. It's really good if you're looking for a portrait or something like that, where you want a particular f-stop to get your bokeh or your compression out of focus, whatever, your depth of field. And that way it will select the appropriate shutter for the lighting conditions. If we move one more over, you get shutter priority. I think of it as T for time. That's the exact opposite of aperture. You set your shutter speed and it selects the aperture based upon the light conditions. I use that a lot. For example, yesterday I was shooting the World Championships of bike polo. And in order to get the shutter speed where I wanted it to, I needed roughly 1/1600th of a second for most of my shots. I'd set the shutter speed to TV, set it to 1/1600th, and let the camera pick the aperture for me. P mode is program AE mode. Your shutter speed and aperture are set automatically. That's where if you want to let the camera make all the decisions for you. Sometimes that's good if you're just at a party, for example, and you just want to capture things and you're not too worried about the exact exposure characteristics. You just set it and you can just shoot and not have to worry about it. Scene Intelligent Auto, it selects everything for you, covers your ISO, everything. The camera makes every decision that it can possibly make. Moving on around, you have Creative Auto. These are kind of a series of presets that you can set on. You can notice how it's got the vivid or soft or monochrome, where you can just touch that and it will make those changes in camera to the JPEG versions. And you can then have that ready to go. Again, it'll save you time in editing if you know what you want before you start. Moving on around to the special scene version, where basically you can choose your scene. You can set up for portraits, you can set up for candlelight, you can set up for a variety of different settings, and I would encourage you to explore those. That way you can play with it. And again, they're presets that set your aperture, they set your shutter speed to get a particular pre-programmed look. Moving on around, you have two custom function buttons. Those are where you can set up an aperture and a shutter speed and ISO very specifically for one scene that you do all the time. So if you shoot one sport a lot, or David shoots a lot of astrophotography, that way you can set it up for that and just go right to it. Your camera is set and you don't even have to think about it. And now, of course, we're back at the bulb. Okay, so David didn't come back because he got a little mad about the dial joke, so Corey's off calming him down. But in any case, I'm going to finish up talking about the buttons here on the top. The autofocus button. Autofocus will let you move between one shot, focus, and servo. By the way, this dial over here, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit also, will move between them also. I use the dial because it's just so much easier to do that. Set it to servo focus, for example, if you're shooting sports for continual focusing. One shot if I'm working in a studio. If you're working at AI focus, sometimes that's kind of a hybrid blend between them, and sometimes that's a little bit awkward, but I encourage you to explore it. Your drive button moves from single shooting to high-speed shooting to high-speed silent, gives you your timers and all of those things. Again, touchscreen or the dial allows you to cycle between them. You can set your ISO right here. You've got a really nice little dial here. It's kind of like the old radio dials, so it makes those of us who've gotten a little bit long in the tooth to feel a little bit better, because, well, it goes back to the days of youth, which, you know, well, it's all long gone, but that's okay. Over here, we've got the metering modes. So you can go from spot metering to evaluative metering, or any of the other systems that they've got available. The last button here on the front gives you the light for your screen. If you're out playing at night, for example, and you can't get at your touch screen for whatever reason, you're using live view or whatever, this gives you your top view here with a backlight so that you can see what your settings on. Again, this is the dial that allows you to cycle between things. If nothing is active, this actually changes your shutter speed. Very easy to do it that way. And lastly, this button here in front is your multifunction button, which allows you to program something for a variety of different uses based upon whatever you think is important. Some people I know, for example, will set their focus button here and their shutter button there. You can program that for a lot of things through the menu system in the Canon. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the bottom of the camera. Right here we've got your serial number, which is important for your insurance records. You should keep that in case it's stolen. That way you can give it to the police to investigate a crime, things like that. Here is your mounting screw for tripods, accessories, things like that. And of course this is your battery pack, which just pops open this way. Your battery comes out with a release there. And you can pull this off, by the way, very easily by using this little knob right there, and that way you can attach your battery grip.
Well, if you guys have made it this far, one thing I should mention is there is a little card button. If you scroll back a little bit, you can hit the little card button and it will pop out and will show all 4 videos. So if you wanted to watch 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on which video you're on, then you can go watch that video. Thanks for stopping in and making it this far though. Over here to the right will be our newest video, which might be one of these videos themselves at the time. Down here diagonally, we are going to put a link to the 6D Mark II that will send you over to B&H. If you are interested in purchasing it, it does give us a little commission. And as always, guys, come on, you made it this far. This has been quite helpful. Go on and hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. And as always, guys, we'll catch you next time.